3 spine-chilling au pair horror stories, revealed secrets of Sinister, haunted families. Julia's heart raced with a mix of excitement and dread as she stood outside the immaculate White House of the Bennett family, the early evening sun casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. This beautiful home in a picturesque New Jersey neighborhood promised a fresh start, a chance to escape her chaotic past. But deep down, something felt off. Little did she know, she was stepping into a web of dark secrets and chilling specters that would haunt her every waking moment. The first night was a whirlwind of laughter and the inviting warmth of the Bennett's golden family ambience. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, an unsettling feeling crept in. The children's giggles faded into an eerie silence, replaced by strange noises. Half-whispers floated through the corridors, and a thin scratching echoed outside her window. Each sound sent a jolt through Julia's body, igniting a primal fear she thought she'd left behind. "Did you hear that?" she whispered to herself, eyes darting around the dimly lit room. It was only a story, she reassured herself. The children's tales of the ghost of the au pair were just folklore, figments of their vivid imaginations, right? But the chill in the air told a different story. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the following nights dragged on, her initial hope began to dissolve. The parents, once warm and welcoming, grew colder, their smiles strained, as if a shadow lurked just behind their polished exteriors. Julia caught them in hushed arguments about their past. Fragments of old newspaper articles about the previous au pair's disappearance flittered in her mind, feeding her growing anxiety. The chilling thought that another girl might have succumbed to darkness in this very house kept her awake at night. She found the children staring blankly at the wall, then one would speak. "You don't want to upset her, Julia the ghost, she knows." Their whispers pierced her like icy daggers, sending shivers down her spine. Hopelessness clawed at her chest, but she couldn't abandon them. Something told her she had to stay. One fateful night, the unsettling sounds escalated. Julia lay frozen in bed, listening to the hurried footsteps echoing down the hall. They drew closer, a spectral heartbeat drumming through her bones. With every ounce of courage, she tiptoed through the dim corridors, her heart pounding. The silence clung to her like a vice, each breath felt heavy and thick. When she reached the children's room, they were asleep until their eyes snapped open in unison, wide and terrified. "She's coming for you, Julia," they chanted together, their voices echoing unnaturally in the stillness. The weight of their words sank into her chest as the window swung open with a creak, leaves rustling ominously outside, inviting her into a nightmare unknown. In that moment, Julia faced a terrifying choice. Would she close the window and retreat, allowing whatever haunted these walls to claim her meekness? Or would she step forward, confronting the malevolent spirit that loomed over them all? Shadows danced and warped, whispering secrets, begging to be uncovered. The darkness around her trembled, ready to unveil the horrifying truth of the Bennett family, a truth that could cost her everything. With a surge of adrenaline, Julia's trembling hand lingered above the window latch. The rustling leaves outside seemed to beckon her. She took a deep breath, forcing the cold air into her lungs. A part of her screamed to retreat, to flee from this malevolent force that toyed with her mind and her heart. But she couldn't turn away, not now, not when the children needed her. Pushing the window open, a gust of wind rushed in, swirling around like an angry spirit set free. The chilling breeze brushed her cheeks and sent icy tendrils creeping up her spine. Narrowing her eyes, Julia peered into the shifting darkness. The trees loomed like sinister guardians, shadows merging and curling into one another, playing tricks on her vision. The children remained eerily still, their stark white sheets contrasting sharply against the deepening gloom. "Get back," one of them hissed, eyes wide in panic. "She'll take you too." Fear gripped Julia, and her heart pounded faster, echoing the children's growing dread. She stepped back, an instinctual response, but the urge to act burned fiercely inside her, urging her forward. The room felt charged with foreboding. Julia turned back to the children, who now sat up, their expressions shifting from fear to something indescribable: guilt. Realization? "We have to show you," whispered the girl, her shaky voice breaking the silence. "Show me what?" Julia asked, her voice almost lost in the shadows surrounding her. They exchanged glances, unspoken words passing between them before the boy spoke. "The ghost. She can't get us if you see her first." The air thickened with tension. The idea sent chills racing down Julia's arms. "What do you mean?" "Sit," the girl instructed, her tones suddenly authoritative despite her small stature. As Julia sat on the edge of the bed, the children joined her, circling her like a protective barrier, their small hands gripping her arm so tightly it hurt. Then the room grew colder, so cold it felt as though time had stopped. Shadows darkened the corners, growing more substantial, coiling like snakes preparing to strike. Julia felt a pull, something beyond her control, and gasped as the lights flickered, plunging them momentarily into darkness before igniting again with an unnatural brightness. "Look," the boy whispered, pointing towards the closet. A figure began to coalesce there, an outline of a woman with long, matted hair and hollow eyes that blazed with a chilling light. Julia's breath hitched as dread filled her chest. The ghost stepped forward, her voice a ghostly whisper, barely more than a breath. "Julia, you're mine now." Panic surged through Julia, freezing every muscle. Everything she had heard rushed back to her: a warning, a tale of a lost girl taken by the home she tried to escape. She glanced back at the children, their faces drawn, pleading. "Stay strong," the girl urged, the barely contained terror in her voice giving way to a flicker of defiance. "Don't give in to her." The temperature plummeted, and Julia was trapped between the pulsating energy of the ghost and the frightened children, who clung to her as if she were a lifeline. This wasn't just a haunting, it was a battle for her soul. Julia's mind raced, searching for a way out. The choice loomed larger than ever: would she confront the truth and fight, or would she succumb to the creeping darkness that enveloped her? Suddenly, with a deafening crash, the window slammed shut, and the ghost erupted into a howl, filling the room with anguished sound. The children screamed in unison, their voices sharp, slicing through the thick miasma of terror. "Help us, Julia!" they begged. And in that moment, as the ghost's wails echoed like a funeral dirge, Julia realized this was only the beginning. Would she have the strength to face the unraveling horrors of the Bennett family, or would she too vanish into their dark history? The ghost lunged forward, clawing through the air, as Julia's world threatened to plunge into unending night. In a flurry of chaos, Julia's instincts kicked in. She wasn't ready for this, not now, not ever. The ghastly figure swayed closer, its hollow eyes boring into her very essence like piercing daggers. She forced herself to breathe, her chest tightening with every heartbeat, as the children's grips tightened around her arms. "Don't let her take you," the girl shouted, her small body trembling against Julia's side. "Stay together," Julia implored, her voice a frantic whisper. The air crackled with dread, thickening like a fog, obscuring the safety of rational thought. The ghost's mouth creased into a sinister smile, revealing cracked lips that dripped an inky darkness. "You think you can protect them?" it hissed, and with each syllable, ice seeped deeper into Julia's bones. "They belong to me." Without thinking, Julia sprang into action. "Back away. We're not yours." Instinctively, she pulled the children closer, their eyes wide, mingling fear with something that felt like resolve. The ghost recoiled for a brief moment, but then shot towards them like a spear of shadow. "Julia, look out!" the boy shouted, his voice laced with panic. Instinctively, Julia raised her arm, blocking the malevolent force. Her heart raced. The cold swept through her fingers, wrapping around her arm like a vice. "I want to let you take them," She screamed, surprising herself with the fierceness of her own voice. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows on the walls. For a fleeting moment, her mind cleared. She recalled the strange stories she'd heard about the house. A family torn apart by betrayal, their loss manifesting in this world. Anger bubbled within her, anger towards the ghost, towards this cursed place that thrived on fear. "Remember the stories?" the girl whispered, desperation clawing at her voice. "You have to find the truth." "Truth," Julia murmured, suddenly aware of the shifting weight of history around her. The facade of the ghost began to flicker. "You're not powerful. You're just a piece of their pain." The air solidified around her. The otherworldly laughter that filled the room twisted and bent, shifting like the shadows. The ghost lunged again, enraged, but now it faltered, momentarily losing its form in the light of Julia's conviction. "Fight back," the boy urged, his voice a beacon of hope. Julia squared her shoulders. "I won't let you hurt them." She focused on the memories of the house, the laughter of the children, the feel of their warmth, the love that trapped them here. With a sudden rush of clarity, she screamed, "Show me your pain." The room quaked. The ghost let out a wail that shattered the window, gusts of wind spiraling into the room, mixing pain and despair with overwhelming power. Julia felt the walls vibrating around her, a pulse of agony echoing through her senses as part of the ghost detached, revealing dark images, faces twisted in sorrow, a family torn apart by betrayal. "Free us," the ghost hissed, its voice both agonizingly soft and maddeningly insistent. "I cannot leave." They need to see. The children's eyes were wide with fear, but there was something else, curiosity. "What do you want?" Julia shouted. "What do you need from us?" The ghost revealed its empty stare, a plea to be recognized, to be remembered. Shadows flickered in the corners, swirling closer, drawing the essence of the house into their dark embrace. Julia felt herself slipping. Would she, too, become another victim, another lost soul? "Hold on," she shouted. "We will remember you all." A gust of wind burst through the room, spiraling with the energy of 1,000 memories, laughter, music, sorrow before it intensified into a raging tempest, ripping through the children's cries. Julia felt a jolt, a surge of power grabbing at her insides, as the past collided with the present. In that blinding chaos, one final question echoed in the darkness, chilling her to the core. "What will you sacrifice to save them?" And at that moment, as shadows closed in, Julia braced herself for a truth more terrifying than the ghost itself. What price was she willing to pay to break the curse? The shadows lunged at Julia, swirling like a tornado, the cries of lost souls intertwining with the wind. The room felt smaller, pressing in on her as memories warped and twisted in chaotic images. She closed her eyes, fighting the suffocating grip of despair. The ghost's laughter echoed, mingling with the screams of the children. "Julia!" The boy's voice trembled, pulling her back to reality. She opened her eyes, driven by the need to protect them. She could feel their tiny hearts pounding against her side, a syncopation of fear and hope. "Focus." The girl clung to her with every ounce of strength she had left. "We need to remember who they are." In that instant, fragments of the ghost's past flooded her mind, images of broken toys, shattered dreams, laughter turned to screams. The house had once been filled with love, now overshadowed by grief. Julia's heart raced as she felt the ghost's anguish, as if it were her own. What did this family lose? She murmured, her breath fogging before her. "Family," the boy whispered, clutching Julia's arm tighter. His small voice sparked something in her. They needed to connect with that pain, to unearth the sorrow binding the spirit to this world. Julia took a deep breath, searching deep within. "Together," she shouted, determination coursing through her. "We can do this." She turned to the ghost, who twisted in turmoil. "What do you need from us?" "Your family we will remember." The shadows shrieked, reverberating through the walls. The ghost's form began to shimmer, revealing flickers of warmth among the chilling darkness. The images morphed into faces, parents, siblings, innocent laughter that faded into whispers of despair. "Release us," the ghost rasped, the agony in its voice striking Julia like a physical blow. "Until they remember, we are condemned." She felt her own heartache resonate within her chest, bridging a connection between the living and the lost. "We are here." Julia stepped forward, pulling the children closer. "We remember, we will carry your story." With every word, the air pulsed with energy. The ghost's hollow sockets filled with a glimmer of color, while the force of darkness began to crack, revealing flickers of light. Memories peeled away from the shadows, their laughter growing louder. Julia could hear it now, the joyous voices of a past that once thrived in this very space. "See?" she urged. "Feel the love. It's still here." The vibration intensified, and for a moment, Julia felt herself drifting. The room spun around her, and a vision formed: happy family gatherings, small hands helping in the kitchen, laughter ringing throughout the halls. But each image sharpened, revealing the cracks in their joy: a father's betrayal, a mother's sorrow. It was a love rendered fragile by lies. "Let us go." The ghost's voice exploded in desperation, echoing through the room. Julia staggered back, overwhelmed by despair. What did the father do? She shouted, fighting against the tide of sorrow that threatened to consume them. "What is your truth?" The specter froze, a fleeting look of recognition passing through its features. "Betrayal," it moaned, its form flickering erratically. "He cast me aside, laughing behind closed doors." Julia felt the weight of that truth settle over her. She gasped, realizing that unlocking this sorrow might require more than just words. She looked to the children. "We have to face it together. We have to show this family they are not forgotten." "No!" The ghost shrieked in utter fury, its form twisting violently. "You cannot. You'll lose everything." The air crackled around them, the tempest of shadows closing in. The children clung to Julia, petrified. She could feel her own fear creeping in, yet a shaft of determination cut through. "I refuse to let fear take us. We do this now." In that moment, hands shaking, Julia clasped the children in a tight embrace. "Remember. Show them love. Show them who they were." Suddenly, the specter wailed, its voice rising to a piercing pitch, blending with the howls of the wind. The room crescendoed into chaos, and as darkness converged, Julia realized with a shiver that unraveling the past would come at a cost. "What will it take?" she shouted, panic clawing at her throat. "What do we need to give up?" The ghost's anguished wail echoed, thick with desperation. Everything, and just as she thought she understood, the shadows swallowed her vision. A chilling silence descended that felt heavier than a stone. What price was she willing to pay for love? The world swirled around Julia, colors blending into a murky chaos as the shadows closed in tighter. Darkness wrapped around her like a suffocating embrace, a hollow weight pressing against her chest. She could barely breathe, the ghost's wailing echoing in her ears, clawing at the very fabric of her mind. Everything, a flicker of light broke through the gloom. The children's hands, small and trembling, still clutched hers. Julia squeezed their hands, feeling their pulse. They were real. What a relief. But the ghost, it was still agonizing. And as much as Julia wanted to turn away, she sensed that their fate was intertwined. "We need to remember," Julia whispered, rallying her strength. "All of us, together." The boy's eyes shone with fear but also a flickering spark of belief. "But what if it's too much?" he murmured. "Then we brace ourselves. We can't let fear win." Her voice was firm, though her insides twisted anxiously. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward in a vicious wave, wrapping around her like a cold shroud. Flashes of images rained down, each one a glimpse into despair. She saw the grieving mother, crumpling to the floor, the father, increasingly distant, his laughter fading into echoes of rage. They were alive once, but now? Now all she felt was a gut-wrenching sorrow. Julia shut her eyes, forcing herself to concentrate. "What happened to you?" she called into the dark, though she knew it wouldn't be enough. "A child." The ghost's voice hung in the air, trembling. It was a threadbare whisper, a longing that twisted something deep inside her. "A child I lost in the storm." The shadows pulsed violently, swirling like a tempest. "Focus on what brought them pain," the girl shouted, her voice fragmented like glass. Julia felt the children's fear cresting, thrumming in her ears like the beating of a drum. "What if we show them love?" Julia proposed, her heart racing. "What if love is the key?" For a brief moment, silence fell. The shadows seemed to pause, as if considering her words. Julia took a breath, summoning all her courage. "You were a family. You loved each other." Laughter from long ago rang through the air, children's laughter, joyous and innocent. Julia heard it distinctly, shadows flickering at the edges as warmth began to seep through the darkness. "Show us," the boy urged, his voice barely above a whisper. "Show us what you lost." In an instant, the room shifted. She was no longer in the claustrophobic space, but standing somehow in a light-soaked garden, the sun shining bright. She saw the family, vibrant and alive, running and playing. The joy emanated from them like a warm blanket. And yet, lurking behind that light, shadows lurked, waiting like wolves in the brush. "Stay together," Julia shouted, clutching the children tightly, her heart pounding wildly against her ribs. She had to keep them safe, but then they ripped her from the vision. The garden faded, replaced by a horrifying scream, the mother's shattered cry that seemed to dismantle the very air. Julia stumbled, instinctively trying to shield the kids. The darkness roared, shoving her back. "Foolish child!" the ghost screamed, its voice mixed with wrath and anguish. "You cannot alter destiny." "No, but we can remember. We can share your pain." Julia yelled back, defiance igniting her spirit. Suddenly, the others, too terrified to fight, started to tremble beside her. The shadows around them twisted in a frenzied dance, full of rage and sorrow. "What if we do lose everything?" the girl cried, fear clawing at her throat. "We can't change what's done," Julia replied fiercely. "But we can hold on to the love that remains." In that moment, the shadows pulled tighter. Every breath became a struggle. Julia's vision blurred, and sound faded to a dull throbbing in her ears. "Please just let us remember," she begged, her voice trembling. The air crackled with electricity, like a storm about to break. "Your sacrifice will not go unnoticed," the specter warned, its voice trembling with both dread and a sliver of hope as the light flickered precariously on the edge of the darkness. What would she have to sacrifice? And would it be worth saving those souls lost for so long? Julia felt her heart tremble, battling between courage and utter terror. In that void, the shadow swirled, teasing the edges of clarity and maddening fear. "Do you know what you risk?" What could her answer be? The shadows recoiled, waiting, each heartbeat echoing like a ticking clock in the silence. Would she be willing to lose herself to gain the peace needed for the family? The pulse of darkness swayed around Julia like a living thing, breathing heavily against her skin. She gripped the children's hands tighter, their warmth a fragile anchor in the creeping cold. "We have to hold on," she urged, her voice barely more than a breath. "Let me see," the girl whimpered, glancing at the shadows that loomed ominously. "What do they want?" "Love," Julia replied, fighting to piece her own courage together. "They want us to remember love." Her heart raced as she recalled the fleeting image of joy from the garden. But now, shadows clamored around that memory, twisting it into something grotesque and mocking. "Stop fighting!" the ghost bellowed, its anguished cries echoing through the void. "You cannot twist the past." The weight of its sadness pressed down on Julia, threatening to strangle her resolve. The boy, terrified but resolute, turned to Julia. "What if we show them? What if we can still make them feel?" His tremor was palpable, but there was defiance too. Julia felt the flicker of hope she had ignited spark again. "Help me remember." She squeezed their hands. "We must focus." As if in answer, a series of images jolted into her mind, the family laughing, playing, the mother's gentle touch, the father's hearty laugh resonating with life. These were snapshots of what once was. "Open your hearts," Julia cried, feeling the shadows ripple with uncertainty. "Remember them as they were. Love can break through anything." The malevolent force thrashed, shadows swirling around them, shrieks merging with whispers. "What you seek is pain, child. You will suffer." But Julia stood firm, breathing through the encroaching dread. "No. I will not let love drown in despair." She forced herself to visualize the light, to bathe the memory in warmth. Suddenly, the room flickered. The children gasped, their eyes wide as ghostly visions of the family swirled around them. Julia could see them now, their faces illuminated with joy and laughter, blurred figures echoing with the remnants of happiness. It was intoxicating, a bittersweet melody hanging in the air. The ghost howled, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundation of the world around them. "You're stirring the echoes of despair," it cried, its tone dangerously close to panic. "You will pay dearly for this." "Then let us pay," Julia shouted back, gathering her will. "We'll take the pain together." The children looked at her, confusion clouding their faces, but there was a glimmer of trust. She could feel a desperation blooming within each of them, a collective pulse of bravery rising against their fear. Then, without warning, the shadows lunged. They were fast and hungry, reaching for Julia and the children, clenching around them with a grim determination. Julia felt icy fingers claw at her throat as despair crashed down. She gasped, struggling to fill her lungs with air. "Remember!" she yelled, ready to unleash the love she felt. The images of the family danced in her mind like fireflies in the dark. Vivid, alive, unyielding. An explosion of light burst forth from her heart, pushing back the shadows, glaringly bright. "You will feel this," she screamed as the warmth surged from within, colliding with the gnawing cold. The shadow shuddered, recoiling in agony. "No! You cannot!" But it was already too late. Julia's defiance sent shockwaves through the darkness. It ruptured from the core, fraying the edges of despair. She felt the tightness of the shadow's grip ease slightly, but they were not vanquished. A deep, wrathful voice resonated from within the dark, threatening and menacing. "This is just the beginning." As the cries of anguish turned into wails of rage, Julia felt the presence grow more aggressive, sensing that this battle was far from over. Would her resolve be enough to face what loomed ahead? "What will you sacrifice?" the ghost hissed, now weaving through the darkness like smoke. The air crackled with palpable dread, spiraling into a thick tension. Shadows danced around them, whispering secrets only Julia could hear. They taunted her. What would become of the children, of her? The question loomed heavy in the air, unanswered, as terror wrapped tight against them once more. And just like that, Julia felt a flicker of doubt. Would their fight mark the end or the start of something much worse? The shadows recoiled, but only briefly. They reformed, lunging with renewed hunger, driven by a collective fury that sent cold dread creeping into Julia's bones. It was a wave of darkness crashing against the flickering light. She had unleashed a storm of despair and grief that wrapped around her heart like barbed wire. "Hold on!" Julia cried, but the children looked terrified, their young faces pale as the shadows swirled tighter, encasing them in a chilling embrace. Each breath became a struggle, the air thick with desperation. With her mind racing, Julia closed her eyes, trying to visualize the warmth of the past again, the laughter, the hugs, the togetherness that had been torn apart in this bleak place. The pressure on her chest increased, the whispers, tortured invitations that echoed around her grew louder, demanding her surrender. What do we have to lose? The boy shouted, fear dripping from each word. We have to fight. She opened her eyes, locking her gaze onto his. Together, Julia insisted. We need to remember together. The children nodded, hesitation still clouding their eyes, but hope sparked with her words. Julia felt the shadows tightening, a dreadful anticipation mingling with their anguish. Imagine your families. She urged. Picture them. Hold on to that love, let it protect us. Suddenly, the shadows surged, and within their mass, Julia saw familiar faces emerge, a fleeting glimpse that made her heart soar with both desire and terror. The children's families flickered like a broken film reel, smiling, tender, joyful, only to be consumed again by the encroaching night. Do you see them? Julia whispered, feeling a frozen tendril inch up her spine. That's who we're fighting for. Even if they're gone, their love remains with us. The screams of the trapped shadows intensified, warning her that whatever was within fought desperately to snatch their last remnants of hope. This is your last chance. The ghost roared, voice cracking with a twisted mix of rage and despair. You think your love can withstand what I am? You will suffer for this insolence. A violent wind howled around them, pulling at Julia's clothes, tugging at the children as if trying to rip them away from her grasp. Trembling but resolute, Julia squared her shoulders. We are stronger than this. She willed herself to visualize the families again, letting the warmth swirl within, determined to break the shadow's hold. In that moment, a blinding flash erupted, radiating godlike warmth that enveloped the three of them. The darkness flickered, a bitter hybrid of light and shadow, and for an instant, Julia thought she saw the silhouettes of the children's family spreading their arms wide, beckoning them closer. Love is the strongest force. She screamed, pouring every ounce of conviction into her words. The shadows faltered as the brightness grew, pulsing like a beating heart. But the force within the darkness was relentless. Fools! It shrieked, you don't know what's coming. This isn't over. With a final lurch, a dark mist flared outward and then collapsed in on itself, pulling Julia and the children tightly into its embrace. Blue-black void enveloped them, pulling them deeper and deeper still, the brightness now just a distant echo in the morose silence that consumed them. You think love shields you? Your reality is about to shift, the ghost snarled, slinking back through the darkness, with shadows coiling eagerly around it. What do you mean? Julia shouted into the void, her heart racing, panic flooding her senses. Let your memories guide you, the ghost taunted, the last words reverberating hauntingly. And then came the silence. A chilly stillness that settled into their bones. As Julia's heart pounded in the void, fear clenching her gut, she realized they were not alone. Something was lurking in the shadows, something monstrous, watching, waiting. What truly awaited them in this realm of despair? Would their fight for love transform into something far more horrifying? The darkness pressed in from all sides, an overwhelming force that stifled any lingering hope. Julia's heart hammered in her chest, each beat echoing louder than the whispers that surrounded them. Stay together! She shouted, her voice cracking. She could feel the children's small hands straining to grip hers, their fear palpable in the cold shadows. A sharp rustling came from the void, sending a jolt through Julia. She turned her head, but the darkness offered no comfort, only more uncertainty. The temperature dropped, a bone-deep chill seeping into her skin, leaving a trail of icy dread. What do we do? One of the girls whimpered, her voice trembling. Focus! Julia pleaded, trying to summon the warmth once more. Think of your families, hold on to them. They're still with you, we just have to find a way back. But as she spoke, doubt twisted in her stomach. Were they truly any closer to escaping? The howling wind awoke an ancient fear, lifting Julia's hair and carrying tortured wails, like those of lost souls. You brought this upon yourselves, the ghost's voice taunted, dripping with malice. You thought love would protect you? By clinging to it, you've sealed your fate. With each piercing word, the shadows stirred violently, swirling faster, whipping around them like a chaotic tempest. Julia felt the children quaking beside her, little bodies pressed against her side as though looking for refuge in her strength. She needed to act. The memories, what had the ghost said? Imagine it. Julia cried out. Picture your family holding you. Remember the way they made you laugh, the comfort you felt in their arms. Murmurs of agreement arose from the children, but their voices were drowned out by the swelling agony of the shadows. The flickering remnants of their families momentarily broke through a mother's tender smile, a father's protective gaze only to be lost again in the ravenous gloom. Then, a low rumble echoed through the void, shaking Julia to her core. You can't escape me, it growled, its tone menacing and sinister. You think you know loss? I'll show you true despair. The very air vibrated as the ghost's ire deepened, a palpable force pulling at their very essence. Release us! Julia screamed. The sound tore from her throat with desperation, but the swirling mass of darkness only tightened its grip. She felt a prickle of panic crawl up her spine as something vast and unseen circled them, drawn toward the trembling light they had fought to maintain. Not only were the shadows angry, they were hungry. A sudden crash like thunder exploded from the darkness, a blinding flash of red cutting through the blackness. The children screamed, and in that moment, Julia's resolve faltered. Was it true? Did love fail them here? Just then, a fleeting image darted through Julia's memory. A fleeting memory of laughter echoed from her childhood, pure and bubbling with life. It ignited something within her, rekindling the flicker of light buried deep in her soul. We have to remember. We have to believe. The shadows recoiled momentarily, but not enough. You should be listened. The ghost shrieked, rising in fury. What you think is true love will only bring you relentless pain. You'll live in your memories, forever. The ground beneath them shifted, the reflective darkness warping and twisting as if the void itself was alive. Julia clenched her teeth, trying to find the strength she thought long gone as she recognized the danger of the approaching entity. Something even worse than despair was closing in, veiled within the swirling blackness. Now! She shouted, summoning every ounce of belief and love into her voice. Together. Hold hands. But even as they clasped tightly, an ominous figure began to manifest from the shadows, revealing glinting eyes and jagged, unearthly claws curling toward them. Julia felt paralyzed by dread. Yet deep within her, a flicker of hope struggled, a whisper reminding her that love itself could transform unimaginable darkness into light to act against this horror before it consumed them. But where would that light lead them? Next? Would it reveal the path to escape or plunge them deeper into the nightmare? A frozen silence hung in the air as the eerie figure emerged from the shadows. Its glinting eyes pierced through the dark, a terrible hunger reflected within them. Julia's breath hitched. She could feel the children's grip tightening around her hands, their little fingers trembling with fear only she could sense. Do you see what you've awakened? The voice echoed, deeper and more menacing than before, each word laced with venomous glee. This is what happens to those who dare to believe in love. Pain and suffering become your constant companions. Fingers digging into her palms, Julia fought to keep her wits. Stay close. Think of your families. But the ghost's laughter morphed into a guttural growl, shaking the very ground beneath them. You want them? They're waiting for you beyond the veil and they're hungry for your pain. The shadows surged forward, wrapping around Julia and the children in an unsettling embrace. Desperation clawed at her throat as Julia strained to remember moments of joy she had shared with the children. The laughter, the bedtime stories, the soft glow of shared promises, they seemed so far away now. We can't give up. She shouted, her voice cracking. We are stronger together. Remember the light. Yet as she spoke, the darkness seemed to chuckle, a sinister response rippling through the air. The deeper the night grew, the louder the echoes of her fears became. You think mere memories can save you? It hissed. You will wander here forever, lost in anguish, while I feast upon your despair. The shadows slithered closer, their icy touch slithering up her legs, spiraling around her waist. Julia's skin prickled, the chill wrapping her heart in a vice grip. No. We won't let you win. With that, she squeezed the children's hands tighter, feeling their warmth against the encroaching cold. Through gritted teeth, she let out a defiant scream that ripped through the night. We are love. We will not be taken by the dark. Light flickered at the edges of her memory, a glimmer of hope spiraling from the depths of her being. Together, they envisioned brightness, wrapping their thoughts around the warmth of family gatherings and summer nights, the colors exploding in their minds like fireworks, but the shadows shuddered and howled in retort, their dark forms writhing in agony against the force of their collective memory. What you see as light is merely a trick. You are bound to this realm, and I will show you anguish beyond anything you could ever imagine. The ground rumbled violently, splitting beneath them as jagged fissures of darkness threatened to swallow them whole. Julia stumbled, nearly losing her footing, losing her grip on the children. Keep holding on. She begged, panic seeping back in. A sudden silence fell, almost as if the shadows were in awe of their tenacity. And then, as if they had paused to plot their next move, a deep, bone-chilling laugh erupted from the ghost. Foolish children, it said, the shadows swirling and darkening around them. You're not just fighting me. You're fighting your own fears. Can you truly hold on to hope in the face of despair? In a blinding flash, the void around them distorted, and images of their loved ones began to appear twisted and grotesque, losing form and solidifying into nightmarish versions of their warm memories. The flickering light that had fueled Julia began to fade as the darkness unveiled its cruel truth. Julia's heart raced, the panic now suffocating. No, that can't be. She shook her head violently, trying to dispel the terrifying illusions. But the children's grips loosened, their fear palpable as more shadows crept toward them. It's too strong. One of the boys cried, his voice teetering on the edge of despair. Julia felt icy hands around her throat, pressing back against the newfound light. Hold on to me. She shouted, but the shadows began to engulf them again, threatening to swallow their final flickers of hope, and then, with a harrowing realization, the darkness tightened its grasp, pulling them toward an abyss. A glimmer of realization hit Julia was fighting truly. The way? Was there something perhaps deeper within the shadows they could turn to? As the light flickered weakly around them, Julia grappled with her own fear. What if the love she cherished had become the very chains that bound them? Could surrendering to the darkness somehow reveal a path back to light, or would it lead them further into the ghost's insidious grasp? The shadows writhed restlessly, a dark sea swirling around Julia and the children. Panic rose within her like a tidal wave. Stay with me. She cried out, though her voice barely cut through the suffocating gloom. Her heart raced. They were trapped, teetering on the brink of despair, shadows clawing at their very souls. Amid the chaos, Julia felt a flicker of conviction ignite. Was the very essence of love, its pure, untainted spark, what they needed to shatter this torment? Taking a deep breath, she gathered the courage within her, steadying her grip on the children's hands. Focus, she urged, her voice rising with certainty, despite the dank choke of shadows. We'll remember who they are. We'll remember love. Suddenly, the eerie laughter of the ghost echoed ominously through the void, taunting and disdainful. You think your memories can save you? It hissed, swirling shadows thickening in response. You are but trifles in a bitter storm of despair. Julia felt the darkness tugging at her, inching closer, but she held on tighter to the children. What they want is to be seen, she whispered, summoning the warmth of her memories, exuding an energy of shared hope. They want to remember happiness. It's part of us. It's a light that can't be extinguished. With newfound fervor, Julia began to recount family moments, her voice steady. Imagine the smell of fresh-baked cookies, the sound of laughter shared during family game night. The children's eyes brightened, tiny flickers of warmth beginning to push through the shadows. Together. The girl spoke firmly, as if seizing hold of Julia's determination. We can do this. We have to remember what they loved, what they enjoyed, and the laughter that came from joy. Squeezing their hands, Julia felt their collective warmth increase, a spark illuminating the haze around them. They shared their memories, each joyous moment they recalled intertwined, forming a tapestry of light that the dark ravenously recoiled from. Bedtime stories. Julia exclaimed, remembering the way the children's faces lit up each time she spun tales of fantasy, a world far removed from their own tragic reality. We told tales of heroes, of adventures far and wild. The swings at the park, the boy chimed in, his voice gaining strength as hope smoldered in their atmospheres. When Mom pushed us and laughed so hard she'd turn red. Yes. The feel of flying high under a sunny sky. Julia shouted, her energy contagious. Remember the beautiful sunsets we painted in our imaginations? Creek splashes. The girl called out. And the tickling grass against our feet. The shadows trembled, swirling wildly, trying to snuff out the light blooming between them. The ghost's angry roar threatened to swallow them whole, but the memory of their joy and love began breaking through, painting their surroundings in soft pastel hues. Bring it back. Julia shouted, spurred by courage. With every shared laugh, every memory, we can break their chains. They are watching us. Together. They chanted in unison. As their memories cascaded between them like radiant beams, a phenomenon began to unfold. Invisible tendrils of light intertwined through the darkness, seeking out memories lost to sorrow, intertwining with the spirit that wandered aimlessly. We will see you. Julia declared, the intensity of her voice slicing through the night. You were loved. The ghost stopped abruptly, the flickering shadows around it wavering. No. You cannot. We can. Julia pushed, you belong to love, and we'll remember you all. With an overwhelming surge, luminous warmth erupted from their souls, flooding the realm of shadows. The specter writhed in protest, but the force of their united memories enveloped it, illuminating the bleak void. Let us bring you home. Julia shouted, thrusting her hands forward, joined in solidarity with the children. They felt an exhilarating rush, love flooding in, washing away despair, igniting something profound. With one last echoing wail, the ghost's form twisted violently. The unbearable weight of years of pain and revision slipped away, unraveled by acceptance and memory. And then, stillness. A sweeping calm replaced the chaos, the void receding like mist lifting in dawn's first light. Gradually, colors began to seep back into the world as warmth and gentleness pulsed through every corner of the house. Faces appeared amidst the glorious light, amber warmth lighting up golden hair, laughter and joy weaving through the bright tapestry of life restored. Julia felt the prideful smiles of the family shine brightly upon her, souls embraced in the elegance of light. Thank you, the ghost whispered, finally at peace, the once lost spirit transformed. You opened our hearts. We are free at last. And as the brightness enveloped Julia, coursing through her veins, she understood. They had faced darkness together, found the flicker of light within the shadows wrought from pain, and even now, the love they shared, each memory would carry them forth. As a gentle breeze lifted, sweeping through the house, she felt the echo of their laughter linger. Goodbye, Julia whispered softly, as she held tightly to the children. They had fought the uncontrollable forces that sought to consume them, and in their stead, they had carved a new path soaked in love. Together, hand in hand, they stepped forward into the light, forever changed, forever bonded. Now, it's your turn. If you want to join us for more spine-chilling stories, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales. Smash that like button now to help us reach other fans who crave these stories. Flood the comments section below. Tell me your reactions and theories about this haunting conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. This is the moment to show your support.